Here we go. We'll put on our second mic. Well, I'm happy to be here. You will notice real fast that I am not a professional speaker as far as like some of the guys we've had up here. These guys are great. They know what they're doing. The role I play at Michigan State University is I manage the Pasture Dairy Center. It's a research facility, like some of the UK's research facilities here, but we have some unique set of circumstances, right? Little quick history. 2007, the Kellogg Foundation, everybody knows Kellogg cereal, right? Also not necessarily doing great along with milk. They donated $3.5 million, right, to convert our already confinement dairy system, which was a pretty decent research facility, but to convert that over to a pasture-based dairy system. Now, if you can imagine, I know maybe a little less so down here in Kentucky, but we get a little bit of a kick, a little bit of pushback from our, let's call them high production, high value animal industry at the university, right? Because I have that side in East Lansing. I have the guys that want cows that are giving 130 pounds of milk and want them in a barn and want them on a TMR 2040. So you can imagine there was a little bit of kickback when this proposal happened as far as putting a grazing facility. We kind of got those guys on board when we said, well, you know, we'll do some automated milking research as well, right? So we'll put some robots in. And so an automated milking system, an AMS, was put in by Laley. And we've been, and the facility started in 2009. So we have over 900,000 successful milkings on those robots. So between the pair, right? So we'll hit 1 million milkings next year. Yeah, there they are. But the biggest thing that I want everybody to remember with the things I show you, we have to operate like a commercial dairy, right? For the most part. Do I get paid to do some research? Sure. Right? We get some funding. We charge for doing research for our situation. But most of our budget comes from our crop, meat, and milk sales. Okay, so besides myself and my Dr. Wilkie, my immediate superior, everybody below us is all paid for out of a revolving account. So we have to do things, and of course that means the low milk prices also affect us like they affect everybody else. Okay, so Chris asked me to do the impossible here, right? Where we're talking about challenges and opportunities in dairy in a time when the dairy market's not great. How many dairy farmers we got? Okay, well, good. That's good. Okay, so you're going to hear me talk about stuff that you may a lot of things that you may have already heard of. You know the opportunities, but a lot of times, and as we discussed a little bit earlier this morning, we have to kind of remind ourselves of the things that we can do, especially when there is low prices. And I got to be a little bit embarrassed here because I'm coming from Michigan. We're the land of when you have high milk prices, you got to add on cows, and when you have low milk prices, you got to add on more cows, right? So we're probably the reason. We're probably the sole reason that milk price is the way it is right now, right? So the question is, where are your production, your marketing? Is it improvements? Is it making improvements to what you already do, right? Is it maybe doing the things you already do a little better? I kind of jokingly put on, labor efficiency, right? And I say that tongue in cheek because most pasture-based grazing dairies, if you happen to have a dog, it's usually your best full-time employee. So we keep our labor, we know to keep labor low, right? But are there other cost savings that you can do for your facility? And then the question, of course, we'll discuss after that is the opportunities, right? So, what can we do to improve the marketing of our farm? We got to think of this as a system, right? It's a whole system. So I know I'm going to offend some beef people in here. I'm going to say some things that aren't very popular because that's what dairy guys do. right? We talk about things that we know do that. Let's talk about production improvement first. Okay, so the big thing we need to do, and regardless of what you raise, right, is I think biggest improvement is to know your pastures. A lot of guys, will go out and they'll be if I went to a farm and I'll say, show me your most productive pasture, and they'll take me to some place that they think, well, I kind of like this south paddock here, and I say, okay, well, how much better is it, right? And they really don't necessarily know. So we really need to know, right, where our best pasture is, right, and how we might be able to emulate that through the rest of our system. This is a CDAX unit. Has anybody ever seen one of these? Okay, great. That's 2 out of 3 great dairy farmers, right? So this unit is GPS enabled, okay? And I can make an argument that anybody who's grazing either beef or dairy, it's a little better for the dairy because of the stage of growth that we grow grass at, okay? But what it does is that thing sits on the ground there, and you drag it behind that 4-wheeler, and it gives me a height, right, of all of our pastures. Now, anybody seen a rising plate meter? Everybody know what a rising plate meter is? Okay, so the rising plate meter, we're going along and we're doing plunks, right, or clicks. We go down and we'll do 30 measurements of any individual paddock. That same paddock, this will take over 100 measurements of. It'll do it a lot more accurately, and it will do it in a third of the time it will take you to walk a paddock. It's GPS enabled, okay? So that means it knows where it's at. So once your farm map is on the system, right, you just drive it. You drive the farm, download it into the software, and you're like, okay, seems like a little work, right? But the data you get, it's amazing, okay? This is actually, if I read it right, this is from the 11th of October, okay? So it's relatively recent. But this is every paddock I have at KBS, right? And how many kilos per hectare. I think it's all in metric. The unit is from New Zealand, right? You can get them in the U.S., and we have 2 of them. But yeah, this is how many kilos per hectare, right, in every paddock. So you guys see the feed wedge, right? Okay. These are paddocks I just come out of, and these are paddocks we need to go into. What this is really telling me, and this line here, by the way, is what we really want to utilize from that paddock, right? So if I have 2,400 kilo, ideally I'm coming out around, this is set up, I think this is set up for my orchard grass where I'm coming around 1,400, my ryegrass paddocks, I'm coming around 1,200 kilos, so about 50% utilization there. Go ahead. This is every, this is per hectare, right? Per hectare. This is per hectare. And so we know which ones, right, are in an area in which we need to graze. So for those, we are not tall grass grazers, right? Our production at KBS is floating around 21,000 pounds per cow. And to do that, I have to have our grass in this state right here, still in the vegetative state, right? Once it starts going to seed, I need to think about harvesting that. So if you can imagine, we're using this system, right? We come in with growth rates in May of 90 kilos per hectare per day, right? There'll be a lot of these paddocks that are well above this line. We need to harvest those, right? Yep. Equivalent to pounds per acre. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I get used to that, yes. So it's about the same as pounds per acre. Yep. One other quick note on this unit here. Do you see the kind of aardvark type shell system there, right? We had a guy from the UK come and do a study on our facility, and the big thing that got published in his publication was this picture, and he said that system, so I can just drive under fences, right? We just drive under fences. They just go right over you. Saves us 192 mounts and dismounts. 192. mounts and dismounts, right? So you want to talk about labor savings, right? So anyway, just thought I'd point that out. Yeah, so the key is on this, of course, is that we want to know, you need to know where the pasture's at, right? Because of this system, right, and knowing exactly where our pastures are at and managing them tightly, right, we can produce over almost 6 tons of dry matter per acre. This is equivalent to our best alfalfa fields off our pasture, right? The other thing is, so our rotation days, right, using this system, our rotation days are variable, right? Because our growth rate, as it increases, right, means that we need to go back to some of those paddocks sooner. So when our growth rates are really high in May, I may have as short of a paddock rotation as like 14 days, okay? But I have a 32-day paddock rotation right now, okay? So because I don't expect that my growth is tanking. So we do that once a week, and then we take 2-week growth rate calculation. So we know how fast it's growing in the last 2 weeks, and we forecast how fast it's going to grow the next 2 weeks. Okay, to irrigate your pastures. Okay, so I tell everybody ryegrass pastures in Michigan, perennial ryegrass, Beerenberg actually is a product, our perennial ryegrass is actually Beerenberg seed. If you have perennial ryegrass in Michigan, you need irrigation. Okay, it can tolerate a little bit of heat, but irrigation is required. Okay, so this is the irrigation we have, KBS. This is a K-line system, right? Has anybody heard of these? Okay, you drag it around. It takes 8 days to, I think it's great if you have 40 acres. Okay, takes a little time. It's great to do 40 acres, maybe some odd fields. Little insurance irrigation. I have 220 acres under this stuff, so it's a little more than what I would recommend. Center pivots work great if you have to have irrigation. But the key is you got to know when to irrigate, right? It costs money. We always talk about what's our cost, what's costing me money. It costs a lot of money to run our system. Our system runs on a pump, groundwater, right? 12 inches, 800 gallons a minute. 800 gallons a minute. So if I'm going to run this, I got to know that it's required to do it, right? So we have lysimeters buried in our paddocks. I have 56 different lysimeters, 8 different locations, buried between 10 centimeters and 1.5 meters. But generally, what do we really care about, right? We care about the root zone. So in our grasses, it's about 20 to 30 centimeters. So we take the average volumetric water, right, 20 to 30 centimeters deep. And you can see this is on 9/18 that I did this measurement. And this one was 19.8 between the 10 and the 20, and 25 between the 20 and 30 centimeters. That's the topsoil. Absolutely. It's a root zone for our ryegrass, right? Our orchard grass is a little bit deeper. We do have some alfalfa in our multi-species paddock, and so some of those roots are, at this point, are probably 7 feet deep, right? But that's a little bit of, we'll call that drought insurance, right? You got to get a little alfalfa there if it gets cold. But even with our irrigation here, right? So you look at that and you see that at this point, I am seriously, because of this 0.198, I would probably start the irrigation. It takes 8 days, right? Depending on the weather. Anytime we get over 1 inch of rain, I can suspend the irrigation, recheck the measurements, right? So you think, man, that's a lot, right? That costs a lot of money. That's something that only specialists like guys at the Pasture Dairy Center at Michigan State can have, right? But advancements are happening. Okay, everybody remember this? Or anybody remember this picture? It happened like 3 weeks ago. Okay, so SpaceX was doing their first West Coast landing. Anybody see that? Okay, yeah, different crowd. So everybody knows how SpaceX can reuse rockets now, right? Reuse first stage rockets. They can land them. And they landed, they shot this one off from Vandenberg Air Force Base, and they landed it. Okay, and they made a big deal. Oh, this is awesome, first one on the West Coast. But what was important was the payload. Nobody started mentioning what was on that. What was on that, right? What was on that was a satellite from Argentina, okay, from their agricultural department, their division. And what that primary satellite does, right, is to measure soil moisture. They claim it can measure soil moisture up to 2 meters deep. Okay, so if there's technology out there that you can use beside. Imagine the money. Of course, I'm sure there'd be a little bit of cost to getting the information, right? And it's not just focused on our South America, right? That satellite is worldwide. But in the end, we'll be able to get that information for less cost, right? Because you always got to know how you can get that for less cost. But so that was the big deal there. 2 meters deep. So if you know what your soil moisture is 2 meters deep, that's going to help crop farmers, not just pasture guys as well, right? How about summer annuals? So we had a little bit of a discussion about this morning already. We do get a drought period. Not all of my pastures are irrigated, and so we like to implement summer annuals. And this would also be a good way to take your cows off of some ground they might want to stockpile down here, right? And there was a little bit of mention of this, but I want to show you some pictures. Sorghum Sudan grass, Sudex, right? Byron seeds, Sudex. Just so there it is. This was planted June. I want to say June 17th and grazed in early September, right? We get 2 grazings off of this. Obviously, the second grazing is about half that size. The stuff's half that size. But those are fall calving dry cows, okay, and heifers. Fall calving dry cows and heifers. I didn't say this earlier. We're 2 season at KBS. Okay, so I have 92 cows calving in the spring between March 15th and the end of May. I have 72 cows calving. These are rough numbers, right? In the October, November. So we're right in the middle of calving season right now. So that's what we're using to supplement our feed for summer grazing. That's what it looks like when they're done with it. So pretty good utilization rate, huh? Okay, we strip graze it. That's we take a 1 hectare paddock, 2.4 acres, right? And I can divide that with 20 to 30 animals. I can divide that into essentially 7 days. I give them the first quarter of the paddock to give them a little room, build some room, and then we give them another 1/8 of a paddock every day. You can see the fence line there. The way we actually have to cut fence through there is, you can see I weed whacked that with a regular trimmer and gator bits. We just go through there to whack it down so I can show them the paddock, show them where it's at. Anybody do anything similar to that? Yeah, it's got to be a wide path. I just went through here and just till it down too hard. I don't know. Maybe. My biggest issue with the 4-wheeler is I'm running these between posts, right? And so I have to kind of go around and into the post. But other than that, it's probably, if I had a roller on the back of that 4-wheeler, that'd be even better. But maybe I'll try that next time. Cover crops, right? Anybody here grow or use cover crops as a forage? Okay, so we use all of our, I don't know if I have a picture of it. I don't. So all of our winter feed for our dry cows, our growing heifers, everything but our youngest calves, everything but our spring calves is based off of cover crop baleage. Okay. So we can get protein levels as high as 17% in some of our cover crop baleage. So that means we're going in after our crops, after soybeans, after wheat, especially after wheat, but a lot of times even after beans, right now, and we will have enough growth period to get one cutting off of that. Still have our value of our cover, right? You're still going to keep the soil intact. It's going to grow back a little bit, and it's corn silage especially, right? So when we're making corn silage in early September, that is a perfect opportunity to put on another crop, put some cover crops on there. We can take a cutting off. It'll still grow back. You'll still have your green manure effect in the fall. We're cutting it in the fall. Absolutely, cutting it, making it into baleage. I have, wow, in inventory right now, I have probably 500, 1,600 pound round bales of baleage. It is a little higher moisture, right? So when I say 1,600 pounds, you're talking 70% moisture or better. Cover crops, depending on what's in it, right? And so that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to use ground, and even if it's your neighbor's ground, there can be some justifications depending on how you pencil it out to actually benefit both a neighboring crop producer and you. They pay some of the cost, you pay some of the cost, and you can lower your winter feeding cost by doing that. But large cover crop program at Michigan State. Other side opportunities to talk about saving money, right? Or lowering our cost. I put this in here, utilities. So I don't know what the utilities are like down here. To be honest with you, they're kind of high up in Michigan in certain areas. I'm in the Kalamazoo area, so selling to Consumers Power or buying from Consumers Power. They have a rebate program. So the utilities around here have rebate programs, right, for upgrading stuff, LEDs, right, going to things. This barn here got all LEDs last year. We reduced the usage by 6,000 watts. Those were 450 watt low pressure sodium lights replaced with 125 watt LEDs. Utility cost 50%. Utility covered 50% of the cost. And of course, our payback was like less than a year on that with just the energy savings. So some things you need to pencil it out, and it did cost us a little money up front, right? We just prepaid utility costs on that barn for a little bit. And now it's all cake, right? Everything we're getting now is all benefit from that situation. Okay, so current marketing. Now we get into it, right? This is what made me nervous about wanting to do this, because I know in Kentucky, like I said, I'm sure us guys up in Michigan are responsible for a lot of that, right? And I, for those of you that don't know, I do a lot of work down here with a couple of the dealers, AMSs and stuff. So I know a lot of the guys, also at Eastern Kentucky, at EKU. Do you know your milk marketing contract? I think there are a lot of guys that thought they knew their milk marketing contract, right? When the prices went down, and then Deans decided they were going to start shutting things off, including dairies that there's a dairy in Indiana. There's a dairy in Indiana. We put six brand new robots in first week of December. And they got a letter from Deans in February, right? So they just made a multi-million-dollar investment, and then they got that letter. Don't worry, Michigan Milk was more than happy to run down there and pick them up, and for $2 less a hundredweight, lower my income as well. But anyway, you really got to know what's in there. What can you do? Right? What will they let you do? MMPA is full. They got full rights to market your milk for anything that's produced on your farm. So if you want to do side work, and I'll show you a little bit of that later, how you deal with that, right? You have to buy that milk back from them. That's what I'm talking about. So are you allowed to process a portion of your milk, right? We're allowed. We do it at MSU, right? So the Pasture Dairy Center sells milk to, well, I take that back. They sell milk to MMPA. MSU Creamery in Lansing comes and picks up milk during the grazing season, makes award-winning cheese. Okay, this Gouda cheese, it's Gouda, by the way. This Gouda cheese that they produce, which I am holding in the background of this picture, right, has won the silver medal in the Dutch division at the American Cheese Society Championships 2 years running. Right, they charge $18.50 a pound for that, but they have to buy the milk from MMPA. Even though they come and pick it up from us, we produce it ourselves. They had to buy it. My milkman gets paid as if he hauled it. So I kind of joke with him. I call up and tell him he gets a paid day off because he's getting paid for hauling it, but he's not hauling it that day. All of these places, well, and including, although it's not MMPA, but including Kenny's, right? You guys know Mattingly's, right? Central Kentucky. All of those places have some sort of situation in which at one time or another, or are currently doing now, they had to buy milk back from their processor. Okay? So while you're building your market, you have to do things that still guarantee you need to have an insurance policy, right? You need to do things that guarantee you a market. And when I say guarantee, I say it in air quotes, right? But that guarantee you a market for your milk. Mooville, for those of you down here that haven't heard, it's a huge regional dairy up in Michigan. And they started out similar with MMPA, buying their own milk back. Now they've got a deal with DFA, which DFA just buys their surplus milk at a little bit of a discount. They have 200 cows, 4 robots, and they are selling almost all of that milk through markets. When you could walk into Walmart and purchase milk for $1.29 a gallon, right? I actually saw it as low as 89 cents a gallon, but I didn't want to mention that. When you can do that, and these guys can still have people drive up to their window and pay them the $3.25 to $3.75 for a whole gallon of milk and not flinch, right? Then they know they got a customer base, right? So they know we got loyal customers, and of course you know the quality of the facility, you know them, right? You know them. There we go. Now, anybody heard of Charlie Hatcher? Okay, state veterinarian of Tennessee. Okay, so I was just down on his facility in July. Okay, and they've got a really interesting story. So he's got, man, I want to say it's 80 cows right now, right around 80 cows. Okay, and they're selling all of their milk through their creamery, on-farm creamery. They have a waiting list of, he said 11 to 13 waiting list of retailers that want their milk that they can't supply, right? But what was unique about this system is that Charlie wasn't sure whether that was going to work, right? And you have to figure out a way to test the market, right? How are you going to test the market? And so what he did was he got with Middle Tennessee State, and he said to them, I will buy you a bottler. So Hatchers would buy them a bottler if they would agree to bottle, with Hatchers paying the cost of the bottling, right? If they would agree to bottle about 150 loads of milk. So this got them, 3 months or so worth of, let's call it market research, right? And MTSU got to keep the equipment when they were done. Okay, and so that's what they did. They realized they have a huge market. Of course, they're just south of Nashville, right? And they're just across the road from a couple, I don't know, 50 homes that are all worth well over $1 million, but right across the road from them. But they had a huge market for this, and thus, that's what they did. They built a plant. Middle Tennessee State, if you go to their creamery website, they're all excited about selling chocolate milk and things now. They're bottling their own milk, right, and starting to kind of sell it. Universities in general, we don't want to compete with the public, right, so we do very little. We'll do some stuff to show that you can do it, but our job is not to compete against you guys. And so like the cheese I was talking about, we do some cheese, but we're really just showing that the market's there. right? The market's there for it. So don't get that point. But the issue is that they can work now with students and things now on bottling that they couldn't do before. And hatchers have a thriving dairy business. Okay. All right. This is where it's going to get ugly. You're raising steers on your facility. Have you thought about marketing grass-fed beef? Okay. So we do some of that at KBS. The difference is I got price from cows that finished beef, 90 cents a hundredweight, 90 cents a hundredweight hanging, right? Hanging. And then Monday we sold 3 into just the regular marketplace for people that want wholes and halves. We got $1 a pound on the hoof. So there's the difference. The cost of raising them were exactly the same. Exactly the same. So you got to look at that stuff, right? Are you located in a tourist area? Right? Can you market the farm experience? Because like I said, this is a system-based deal, and everyone here, and this applies to everybody, not just dairies, right? But if you can add a little, that's okay. They don't want to listen to me anymore anyway. I think it's this one. If you guys can add a little more income stream, another income stream, right? Then it's an opportunity, right? How about an Airbnb? Kenny's Cheese, it's got 2 very successful ones over their robot barn right now. Okay, you walk out the door, you walk out the back door, big picture window over the compost bedding pack, right? You walk out the front door, and these are all upstairs. Gorgeous Kentucky view, right? Rolling hills, sit and eat coffee, drink coffee. So they've got also hatchers have a thriving business as well with both Airbnb and doing conference center tours. They have a conference center on their heifer ranch. Okay, so it's something else that we can do. Oh, looks like you're out of luck. Do you sell your bull calves? Okay, so we talked about this a little bit this morning. A lot of pre-weaned bull calves come from dairy farms, right? Okay, right now I'm looking at $40 to $50 a head for a bull calf. Okay, for Holstein. Okay, here's where and here's where I'm going with this. Right, we have started since we're seasonal, right, and a lot of people are seasonal. You don't have to be. We're 2 season. The late calvers in our seasonal production system, they don't always rise up to the performance of the ones that calved earlier. Okay, we have started to breed all of our last 3 weeks in the spring and last 2 weeks in the fall calving, and I may actually go to a month and 3 weeks later. Homozygous polled, homozygous black, limb flex, that's Angus and Limousine bulls, right? So we're going to market a calf that's more like a beef calf, heifers and bulls, the whole stock deal, right? Because we need to improve our income or our performance from those later calving cows, and that's how we're going to do it. A couple things play into that. Replacement heifers aren't worth very much either, right? As a matter of fact, we raise all of our heifers at KBS, right, at the Pasture Dairy Center. We raise all of our heifers. I try to breed every one, but because I'm not allowed to have bulls, and a lot of people are, we set up our heifers twice. They get 2 chances, right? They don't get bred the first time on a 7-day cedar sink. We come back in between 28 and 35 days later, preg check them, and if they're open, we put another cedar in for a 5-day cedar sink. They don't get pregnant on that one, they're in the beef herd, and that's that, right? We sold some replacement heifers this year. Got about the exact same money as I do for selling the finished heifers. So at this point, and of course, part of that's the dairy market. That's the way it is. So that's how you increase your late calving or your low genetic cows, right? Things you really don't want a replacement from. The other thing is maybe you're not a very good dairy. I know you guys are great, but this is for everybody else, right? So maybe you really don't like milking cows. Okay, so is there something better? right? Are you an excellent heifer raiser? Because honestly, a lot of grazing dairies make their money raising heifers, right? Selling excess heifers, right? They really love it, and they do a great job of it. They have some gorgeous heifers, and they can do it for cheaper than some of the custom heifer raising operations that we have up in Michigan for sure. Keep in mind, for every 3,000 cow dairy, 3,500 cow dairy up in Michigan, I have somebody that's raising their heifers, right? So we can do that outside. We can do it economically. Okay, this is our website, Pasture Dairy Center. I'll be here the rest of the day as well. Don't know if I have as much to offer as everyone else, just more practical experience, but that's what we do. A couple quick pictures. That's our little milk truck there coming and picking up the milk. Actually, the tank at the farm is bigger than the tank on that truck. But when we make cheese, they come and pick up 1 day's worth of production 10 different times throughout the grazing season to produce that $18.50 Gouda cheese, per pound Gouda cheese. Here's an outline. Here's a picture of our pastures. Up here, there's the dairy center, the pasture dairy center. It's in the middle of the pastures, right? And there's our ground there. It might be hard for you guys to fathom this. That's perfectly flat. Perfectly flat. That used to have a center pivot right there in the center and be all corn. Right? But we produce a lot more with the pasture actually. So this down here is our heifer raising facility. These are actually done pre-pasture dairy center. We were raising heifers on pastures. Those are 4-acre paddocks, where these paddocks here are our 1-hectare paddocks. Okay, a little picture of our irrigation system running there, and our grazeway gate here, which allows us to graze. So with the robots. Questions? Mm-hmm. No. Oh, yeah, it's a good question. And no. All right, so we use sex semen on our heifers, right? Your probability of getting heifers pregnant is a lot better than your probability of getting cows. Although our probability first, because of the robots and the activity, we're at 60% first insemination for cows as well. So we are using sex semen for the first insemination of the cows and for all of our inseminations for the heifers, right? Well, for the first insemination, the heifers too, because of the second insemination, the heifers, now I've moved to using all beef bulls too. So that second round, we generally are getting 75% on our heifers first insemination, which isn't horrible considering we time them all. We don't do any heat detection on the heifers. It's all cedar sink, 7 days. Then we get the other 15% for 90% total. The second round. The second round is all limb flex semen. Oh, percentage-wise of conception rates? It depends on the farm, right? But I mean, I would estimate we're losing like 12%, so 10 to 12%. The newer stuff with 4 million cells in it is showing a little more promise from like sexing technologies, and then some of that also from select sires, right? But there's some loss there. There's some loss there. And I have a limited window, right? Because I have 10 weeks. So that means that we have a very limited window to breed those cows for the spring, and I have even a smaller window to breed those cows for the fall, 8 weeks. So beauty of the system is, though, I'm never calving or breeding at the same time, right? I'm never calving in January, February, early March, yes, or late March, yes, but not January, February, not December, right? The other thing is, real quick, a lot of our seasonal dairies in Michigan, some of the co-ops are starting to tell them, well, we're going to dock you if you're seasonal, right? So they're getting picky. So some of the guys are going to the 2-season like we do. Great question. Great question. So depends. We have 2 systems, right? We have a high stocking rate system and a low stocking rate system. The high stocking rate. So I have 2 robots, but they're 2 separate herds, right? The right here. Okay, so the low stocking rate system is all of these paddocks. That's 80 acres, 32 hectares, right? And I can run 85 cows on one robot, right? On 80 acres. Low stocking rate. It's about a cow an acre, right? On this side here, this is a high stocking rate. I'm running 70 cows, but I have a half the ground, 40 acres. Reason that is there's that situation all over the Midwest, right? Do we have too much grass? Do we have not enough grass? So we kind of emulate both of them, those situations. High stocking rate, low stocking rate. This one here, we can get 55% of their yearly feed intake is eaten off the ground, right? Keep in mind, with the way the robots work, you know, they're getting 15% of their daily intake from a robot, except for when they're a dry cow, right? And if they're a fall calving dry cow, all of their feed for their dry cow period is coming off the ground. We don't none of that feed is coming from stored forages, right? This side, it's going to this side where it's higher stocking rate, because we have a higher stocking rate, we have to supplement those cows in low periods of growth, right? I never have to add feed to this system the way we grow it, right? I never have to add feed to that 80 acres with those 80 cows during the grazing season. On this side, when we only have 70 cows and 40 acres, I have to add feed when the growth rate slows. So when our growth rate drops, which we know every week what our growth rate is, we forecast that we're not going to have, this is a key, you forecast that you're not going to have enough feed. You don't wait until you don't have enough feed, right? You forecast it. Our growth rate right now is only 40 kilos per hectare, and that means in 2 weeks, this paddock is only going to have 2,200 kilos on it. I need it to have 2,400 kilos on it. So I got to start feeding now, right? So that we increase the residuals that are left in the paddocks that they're eating now. So the next time we come around to them, they actually have the grass we need in them. Does that make sense? So, yeah. So on that, I'd say it's closer to 40%, 38 to 40%. It's actually eaten from the ground. But that's a special situation, right? And the other thing is, it kind of thinks about, a lot of these guys, anybody organic in here? Organic? Okay, right? I assume since you're here, you're a grazer first. Okay. He's laughing because he knows what that means, right? I deal with guys every day that need to get that 30% and need to get that at 30% in that 108-day window or whatever their grazing window is. And what they really mean is they want us to show mathematically that there might be a chance that they're getting it off of this 20-acre piece because they really don't want to graze. They're not grazers, right? But there are I would say there's a good lot of organic guys that are grazers first. And so that's more of this type of system, right? If they want to do it right and they don't have that much and they really want it, they want to graze, but they just don't have that much ground for as much cows, then that's that robot one situation. So, anything else? I didn't think I was going to go for the 430, but that's the way it goes. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, can you answer one more
Sure.
question for me while I'm changing?
Sure.
Well, first we want to thank you. Let's thank Howard for his presentation.